I'm gonna have to do record.
It
Okay,
just
thank
popped
you.
up that it's recording it, Leslie, for me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we ready to start? Okay, seeing that it's about 7 o'clock, I'm going to call the regular council meeting for June the 22nd to order. Is there any late items?
This dog.
Where is the Bluetooth speaker that we're sitting here? Scott. Yeah.
Okay, so then, seeing as there's no late items, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
All motion?
Second.
I have a second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So now we are on to delegations. And so the first delegation is going to be Kelsey Winter.
Yes, just one moment and I will let Kelsey on as, I thought I saw her earlier.
I'm here if you can hear me. I'm dialed in by my phone.
That's the phone
Okay.
number. Okay, here we go. I'm just gonna rename you Kelsey.
Thank you. And I'm hoping someone can share my slides if you all haven't had a chance
Yes,
to look
I
at
will
them
be doing,
quickly.
I will be doing that in just a second. I just need to
Thank you.
make you well, I think we're good. So as long as we can hear you, we're good. So I will now share the screen for your PowerPoint. Share. Can everyone see the screen?
You can.
Perfect. Am I good to go?
You are good to
You're
go.
good to go.
Awesome. Thank you again for letting me come and speak with you. It was, this idea has been percolating with quite a few of the partners that we've been working with, just assisting with what we are in Fire Smart and Wildfire Resiliency and your guys' rebuild. And so the idea was put forward for a Fire Smart Commemorative Garden, and the name is not set in stone. So if there's a better name that works for your community, then we're happy with whatever that name may be. Can you go to the slide, Leslie, that has the goals? I think it might be the third one.
Okay, there we go.
So the idea behind the garden or the green space or the community space is just really to have somewhere that, first of all, provides a bit of a memorial for the event, for the fire in 2021. Second of all, provides a space for the community to go, and it's a safe space and a relaxing one, and one that encourages that community that you guys have shown so clearly in your rebuild. So that was the idea behind having local artists have space in the garden and seated spaces, and place to share your work, as well as some sort of a plaque or a statue that commemorates the event. And then the third, just being a really good way to demonstrate how much you are all doing in terms of building your community back in a resilient way. So making sure that it's environmentally sustainable, that it's pollinator friendly, that it's native species, that it's wildfire resilient, and that we're, considering all those net zero aspects as we create the architectural plan for the space. I think what's on the next slide? Sorry, I can't see because I'm in the field. I'm a little blind. I think the only other slide that's kind of important to share, there's one about partners and potential sponsors. So we haven't, of course, approached anybody yet about sponsoring the project. We do feel quite strongly that if we are able to share that we're working on this project, there will be no ends of people that want to contribute to it, because it's just such a meaningful way to give back for all your hard work. So that's the partners page. Next steps, I think if you want to proceed to the slide that says next steps, would be, of course, your approval. And if VOL approves, then the next thing that we would do is ask for a little bit of guidance from you on what the footprint would look like and the size, maybe something about the location, and then we could get started with some landscape architects on what that would look like. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. And then once we had a bit of a plan in place, we would of course bring that back to yourselves for some tweaks and approvals and any changes that you think need to be made. And then we would just slowly, start the wheels in motion to carry this across the finish line. And if possible, we'd love to announce it at your event on the 30th. I think it's a pretty meaningful one, but we're happy if it makes more sense to wait and have this done after as well. And that's all I really had today. I'm happy to answer questions.
Do any councillors have any questions?
Not at this time.
My question, Kelsey, would be, is approximately what size of footprint are you looking for?
That's really up to the village. I mean, we can work with whatever space. We were hoping that it would be big enough that we would have some ability to put a couple benches and some places for temporary or permanent art installations that are made by local artists. So we're hoping a park-like space, but we're happy with a garden as well. And we can make either work, whatever you deem best for you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? Would someone like to make the motion, a motion regarding this concept?
I'd like to motion that we begin looking for some place that could accommodate this and see if this is something that we can actually do.
So you're approving the concept of this garden?
Yeah.
Yes. Do I have a seconder?
Would you like me to read that out just as what I've got so far, Mayor Polderman?
Yes.
Okay, that council supports the community garden and begins looking for an appropriate site to accommodate this idea.
Thank you. Is there
I'll
any
second that.
questions? Thank you, Ross. Are there any questions?
Can we refer to it as a commemorative garden?
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And thank you, Kelsey, for all the work you've been doing over the last few months. The council appreciates it.
My
So
pleasure.
on-
And I'll get back to you shortly with more details as well.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to our next delegation, and it's Mr. Gord Rattray. He's the Executive Director of the Manufactured Home Association of British Columbia. So with that introduction, Gord, you're on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to try and share the screen here. And you've already got a copy of it, so let's give it a try and see if I can do it. Otherwise, but I'll try and, can we unfreeze that? So I don't seem to be able to share the screen. So what I'm going to do is, you've got a copy of it.
Here, Gord, excuse me,
Okay.
Mr. Rattray, I will try to see if I can allow you to share the screen.
Sorry, it's not allowing me to do that. Oh, wait a minute. There's another
Go
one.
ahead. You should be able to do that now.
Okay. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present this evening. There's quite a bit of information. I'm going to move fairly quickly through it with the sort of the expectation. I'm providing general information with the opportunity that we'll discuss it at a later date. But I'd like to start off and thank the council for allowing Mayor Jan Polderman to attend our conference in Penticton, and I'm actually here in Penticton tonight. I'm participating in an interior realtors conference. So I've spent most of the day talking about modular and manufactured housing. So I'll move fairly quickly. And again, thank you for the opportunity tonight and for Jan Polderman to attend our conference. I'll go through pretty quickly. What I want to really do is to do a quick overview of what our industry is all about, with the idea that as you develop your plan for the rebuilding of Lytton, you may consider some of the elements from our industry. This is sort of the agenda. I'll move through quickly. I just want to qualify my presentation as I'm not selling any product here. I'm trying to explain the concepts. If there was purchasers down the road that were interested in the product, then they would be talking to our retailer network. MHABC has been around for 50 years, since 92. We're a trade association serving the companies that manufacture, sell, transport, and provide services to the factory-built housing industry. I deal with numerous calls every month from the general public, real estate agents, and that's why I'm here in Penticton. I'm talking to the Interior Realtors Association, talking about the product and the certification standards we wanted to cover very quickly tonight. So that's what we do. One of the things that we need to sort of stress up front is, as you develop your strategy for rebuilding Lytton and you come up with how you want to contribute, there's the opportunity to stick build your homes, bring in contractors, start from scratch. You're talking about bringing product in, plumbers, electrical people. In our world, you start right from the beginning and you say, we're going to use modular concepts. You talk about permitting. You talk about development of the site prep and the foundations, the manufacturing processes, which have been done in the factory. The key one is the transportation. These homes are built in factories in climate controlled conditions, and they're brought in and they're placed on foundations. So that's what I want to cover off tonight. And we're an advocate that if manufactured modular housing or something in Lytton's future, that you look sort of at the schematic saying, this is how we're going to have to approach it. In our world, there's three major CSA, Canadian Standards Association. There's the manufactured home standards, Z240MH, Csa A277, which is the modular standard. And then there's a foundation standard that's used to place predominantly the Z240. And facetiously, I've always say this is a Canadian Standards Association. It's the same group that certifies your toasters in your homes. They're the ones that develop the standards, and they're responsible for the ongoing update. The 16 means it was last updated in 2016. Z240MH has been around since 1972, so it's been around for a long time. So that's what I want to cover tonight. When you look at the products that we provide, these are just some of examples. The picture in the upper left-hand corner is a comparison of an old Z240 against a new Z240MH. The upper middle picture is one of the P&E homes built in West Bank. It was trucked to Vancouver, taken apart, put back together, and I think it ended up somewhere in the Penticton area. Upper right is a classic A277 modular home. The lower right, lower left-hand picture is actually it's using old ship cans. It's built by a company in Kelowna and Edmonton, Onomobo. It's a pretty nice looking home, and it's using old shipping containers. Lower middle is a classic Z240MH. The lower right is a laneway home constructed out by UBC. It was a 1,200 square foot home, 4 modulars. They were brought in and then they were placed on site. Next picture is this is a double wide up in Penticton. It's a duplex home. It was placed. It's up and down, but it's 2 homes side by side, and they were constructed in the Moduline plant. Middle is just to give you an idea of the concepts. This is one of the Olympic Village that was developed in 2010, built by Britco. After the completion of the Olympics, the building was taken apart, relocated to 6 centers around the province, and the one you see is for a social housing project that was developed in Surrey. I show that just only to explain the diversity of our products. This is too technical. I won't spend a lot of time. Sorry?
We can't see your pictures. Like, I think you think you're sharing your screen, but you're not.
Okay.
Nobody can see them.
If it's not sharing, then Jan, so what you've got is the in your package was the CSA. There was a PDF product.
Put it in the package.
Okay.
I'm just looking, she told him she would, but you never know.
And so what I'll do, so if you can't see the screen, there's probably some kind of a internet problem, but If you were to follow along, I'm on a page, it says CSA Z240MH-16. This is a standard that we use. It's the classic, used to be called mobile homes or trailers. That was in an era when they had their own wheels and axles. They're too heavy and too big to have that now. So they're called Z240MH, last updated 16. The major criteria of that is they're built on a steel frame, generally destined for manufactured home park communities or placement on private property. What's key is that steel frame is being used for anchoring purposes. I'll move on to the next one. There's a fellow, a man standing in front of a double wide. This is the anchoring standard that's been approved by CSA. When you take that steel frame, that standard, and just so you can concept it, it defines how those homes are blocked, how they're cabled to the ground. They're subject to wind conditions, to seismic conditions, and they vary depending on where they're located in the province. Or say they're windy conditions means there's just more blocking, there's more anchors. But it's important to understand that there is this standard that are used for setup, and that's what it would be if you were to move forward and use this Z240MH product. You'd use the same anchoring standard. I'll flip to the next one. It says Z240MH setup. The classic way these are done, you'll see the picture where the home is actually being lifted, elevated up from the front. It's being used by a hoist on a truck. The middle picture shows the dollies that this home was brought in on. The lower picture talks about how double wides are set up. This was a home created down in Pitt Meadows. And then the final picture on the right-hand side is the completed project, shows how they're set up, pulled together, and they're placed on blocks, sometimes on ceramic blocks. But it's that Z240MH standard that's used to identify how these homes are being anchored to the ground. It's a provincial standard, and I say to people, if you talk to a setup person, they don't know what Z240 10.1 is, go find a new setup person. Moving to the next one, and this I think is more important to this conversation. This is called Csa A277. It was last updated in 2016. It's in the process of being updated now. This is what's called a plant standard. And what the plant that are certified by third-party inspection agencies, they come in, they look at the design people, they look at the ability to build homes in full compliance with the BC Building Code. And this is what again, you don't need to read all the information. This is what the standard looks like, and this is what's in the plants. And this is how a third-party inspection agency like an Intertech or a QAI or CSA inspections come in, they bring in this document, and they go through and do an inspection process. Not every home is inspected because the plant has its own internal quality control systems, but that quality control system is monitored by one of those third-party inspection agencies. I moved on to the next picture. These are some classic pictures of how A277 homes are constructed. What they are, there will be, and this is in a development in Penticton called Bridgewater. It was on an old golf course site. A fella from Vancouver bought the old golf course and put in a subdivision of about 65 homes. The way that it works, that foundation in the middle is constructed. The mid walls are placed there. Of course, they're wood. The home is brought in on a transport system. You'll see it being elevated with a crane on the right-hand side. What you'll see is the first module was placed to the left. There was the middle module that was placed on the foundation, and it obviously complies with that intermediate brace in the basement. And the final section is placed, pulled together. And I don't have a picture of the completed home, but there was homes that built in this shape. They put a garage on the front, they put a deck on the back, and you can see a comparison on the bottom. You'll see what the typical home looks like in that subdivision now. They're classically 1,500 to 2,000 square foot A277s, most on full basement, some just on crawl space, but they're fully compliant with the BC Building Code. They meet the current energy requirements. They will be step code compliant, and the council is probably fully aware that this fall, the Building and Safety Standards Branch will bring in a revised 2022 building code. which will say that every home in British Columbia will be required that's being constructed at the time to meet step code 3, with a goal of getting to the 2023-24 era when homes are supposed to be meeting a net zero standard passive level. It's just going to mean more insulation. It's going to mean wider walls. There's a lot of work to do, but most of these homes that we're creating today are easily meeting step code 3. I'll quickly move on. The next slide speaks to energy efficiency in the BC step code. Again, I'm not telling you anything that the council's not aware of. The step code is a BC product. It's unique to Canada, although the National Model Building Code will bring in a similar step code provisions. But right now, the basic step code 1 is in compliance with the National Model Building Code in terms of energy efficiency. And as it evolves, obviously they'll be designed for geographic locations, but our homes will easily meet step code 3, and it's not a leap to say we're going to be easily meet step code 4, and step code 5 is going to be it's on the horizons. We're dealing with it, but we're in the same boat as stick-built homes, and we're all working together to figure out how to make that work. What's important, the next slide you'll see, it's climate change and implications of manufactured and modular housing. What we worked very closely, and Mayor Polderman was at our conference and heard a presentation by Dr. Mohammed Al Hussein, who's an acclaimed academic working out of the University of Alberta. He is probably the preeminent academic across Canada. He's done a lot of work, and you'll see that 43% up to 43% reduction in CO2 emissions when you compare, and that's a comparison that says we don't need to bring in, 10 cement trucks, and we don't need 50 lumber trucks, and we don't need a bunch of supervisors driving back and forth to the site every day, and the wastage of material. The homes are created in a plant, minimal waste, they're energy efficient. So we're already saying that if manufactured and modular housing is on the horizon, we're already talking about a dramatic impact upon climate change. It's something that the council should be giving consideration. 70% talk about waste site reduction. Again, you're familiar with being on a site-built home where you see chunks of gyprock and ends and lumber and garbage. You won't see it because all of that is dealt with in the plant. When they arrive on site, they're craned on it. There is minimal waste, probably a little bit of gyprock mud as you seal up the marriage walls. So it's really important to understand that manufactured modular housing has a significant impact upon climate change, and we believe it's something that should be given strong considerations. You can read the others, but we're just saying that we believe there's real opportunities because it's built in a plant for carbon capture. I'll move on to the next slide, and we're getting near the end. One of the things that we have been dealing with as our industry, there's an example of some heat pump systems, and I'll talk about that, but we have been dealing with many communities that are dealing with interface fire situations. We've had some jurisdictions come to our industry and say, look, we want that side of the house, so we want the total house protected. So there's resistant siding materials. We're putting resistant soffits on. We're putting fire resistant vents on the roof. So we're already there as we're being demanded, and it's being dealt with in our manufacturing plants. We're talking about EV charging systems as becoming the norm. When you purchase a house, there'll be a package. There will be automatically an EV charging system, obviously subject to the contract negotiations. Sprinkler systems. Many of the jurisdictions in British Columbia are now demanding mandatory sprinkler systems. We still have some challenges in installing sprinkler systems in the home and the factory. Most of them are a system that's put in after the fact, but we're grappling with how you can put a sprinkler system into a factory-built house with all the pieces actually installed in the factory. What we have done in terms of heat pump applications, everybody can't turn their TV on these days without hearing something about a Fortis BC rebate for heat pumps or BC Hydro, Clean BC. We have been talking to a number of electrical firms. The one that stands out, you'll see on that Clean BC, there's a company called Lytton Electric, and they are selling these heat pump systems. What you'll see on the right-hand side, they're They're ductless. That small unit is actually attached to the side of the home. It's not the typical heat pump where you see the big unit outside in the yard. These are attached to the side of homes, and those units you see are actually placed in rooms within the homes. They provide both heat and air conditioning. And what's interesting in my work with the retailers, I was dealt with a lady that grew up in Atlantic Canada, and she says Atlantic Canada has been using heat pump systems for years, and she's at a loss to understand why Western Canada hasn't adopted this technology. Again, talking for a place like Lytton where you would consider putting this sort of technology in a home, you're buying heat and air conditioning. And with the rebates now, I'm told the cost of the typical unit is about $10,000. When you start getting into the rebates provided by BC Hydro, Fortis, and Clean BC, you're going to be able to pay off about half of what the cost of that installation is. So again, it's important, and we are talking about being able to put these systems in the plant. They don't have to be installed on site when the home shows up. Those units are going to be already installed. It's a matter of hooking some power up. And when you stand beside one of these things, you can hardly hear it running. It's not like the old technology where you hear those big heat pumps running in the backyard. I'm going to conclude there. Thank you for the opportunity. If there's any time for questions, I'm pleased to try and answer them. I just want to, you'll see a Ronald McDonald House charity. We are a strong supporter of the Ronald McDonald House charity. For every home that's reported through our association, we provide $10 to the Ronald McDonald House charity. And we do it because it's a valuable organization for the kids. And we have no hesitation in saying it's part of our pricing structure we give that month. And I'm just finalizing the check here for first quarter, and it's in the range of about $3,000. I'll send a check to our Ronald McDonald House in Vancouver. And that's it. I'll turn it back to Mayor Polderman. If there's any questions, then please answer them. Alternatively, I would say if you would want more information, I'm more than prepared to say we would be pleased to go and set up a tour of the facility. And I'll stop sharing that if it didn't work, but there may be some value in talking about the technology and showing what a typical modular home subdivision looks like, and set up a tour of the plant so you understand how these homes are constructed. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak. That's it. Mayor Polderman, back to you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Unfortunately, we had a bit of technical difficulty sharing the pictures until the very last slide. We will make sure that the presentation is put on the website with the pictures. And I want to thank you for your presentation. And you have a contact number for people to contact. One area that I don't think you sort of covered was if you did a cost comparison between a stick built and a modular. At the conference, they were saying that there is a savings when you go to have it built modular.
Yeah, so I'll quickly answer that, and obviously we don't have time to cover off, but when we talk about of affordable homes, we're really talking about the Z240MHs. And today, our typical single unit A277 manufactured home is 16 feet wide to 20 feet wide, anywhere from 60 to 70 feet long. I just went by one of our retailers in Penticton here. They're putting a 16 wide 60, and they're selling it for somewhere in the range between $225 and $250. And so run the numbers at 16 feet wide by 70, you're talking in the range of 1,400 to 1,600 square feet. So that's the affordable home. The modular one, when you start looking at it, there's not a big difference. I was in one the other day. If you were to build a home in Vancouver or a Kelowna area, you're probably talking about $300 a square foot. If you're talking about the modulars and the pictures I showed about lifting and craning these homes on site, it's not like you're going to get a modular home for 50 cents on the dollar. They're probably well within that, that $300 a square foot. You might get it down to $275, but for the sense of it, they're not going to be supplied for 50 cents on the dollar. They're very comparable with the stick built home.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a quick question for anyone who is interested in this sort of home. What sort of timeline would they be looking at as far as putting in an order and receiving the product?
Yeah, so right now, and it's an excellent question, we are in the same situation as just about every other industry. We're dealing with labor issues, we're dealing with supply chain issues. Right now, if you were to order one of these homes, you're probably not going to see it till the end of fourth quarter 2022, more likely early 2023. And the plants are doing everything they can to try and increase production, but just the pent up demand for these homes and, you know, the post-COVID era, we're dealing with no different than Chevrolet and Ford trying to provide cars. We're in the same boat trying to. So answer a long-winded answer, you're probably looking at 7 to 10 months to get delivery on one of these homes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We're now on to public comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is the point on the agenda where the public are invited to comment on matters pertaining to the agenda for up to 2 minutes for a maximum of 10 minutes total. Speakers must state their name, address, and agenda item they are speaking to for each comment. And I will just look to see whether we have anyone. We have, I'm not certain how to pronounce that name, but Jawag, if you could unmute.
Yes, that would be Ernie Wagner at Agassiz here. And I was kind of surprised to see on the agenda that solar Earth project there. So I didn't have a lot of time to research them, but they've been around for 6-7 years. And what they've advertised is only 4 locations that they've put these projects in where they have solar sidewalks and that sort of thing. One is in South Africa, the other one's in China, and one in Tampa, Florida. And they did put one in Kamloops. Now, the one in Kamloops, they put that in 2017. Then they came back and redid it in 2019. And I was trying to get a hold of someone there today, and I just got a message, so I'll look into it further. But someone told me that it didn't work and they tore the whole thing out. It was just a small octagon sidewalk kind of configuration. But you know, when it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. So what they have there is something that could be damaged by a sharp object or something like that. And there are underground connections to each panel. I've worked with underground connections for 50 years with the CM, and they can be subject to corrosion, especially when you salt the sidewalks and everything. So that's one thing. Another thing, you need to have a trained person looking after this whole project. And I don't know about the cost, but there's only one in Kamloops in all of Canada that has gone with this. So I would really think you should caution about this project. Anyway, and about the heat pumps, we got to remember that you're going to need auxiliary heat in Lytton, because after a few degrees below zero, they're no good. So you have to think about wood stove or propane. Okay, that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. The next person we have is Denise O'Connor. Go ahead, Denise.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, Denise O'Connor here, formerly of 522 Fraser Street. As president of the Lytton District Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to speak to item 7.4, the Economic Development Officer. I just have a very quick comment to make, and that is how pleased we are that the Chamber is included, and we look forward to entering into the contract with O'Leary and Associates. We know that economic development was an issue prior to the fire and is just as important, or probably more so now. So yeah, we look forward to supporting the work needs to get done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sarah Brown, you're the next person.
Thank you. My name's Sarah Brown. I was born and raised in Lytton at 522 Fraser Street. And my comments tonight speak to many items on the agenda. Today, Premier John Horgan did the most honorable thing that, in my opinion, he has done since he became Premier 5 years ago, and that is to admit that he was wrong. About 40 days ago, he announced the new Royal BC Museum rebuild. The result of this announcement was incredible public outcry and protest. After listening to British Columbians, his constituents, Premier Horgan admitted he was wrong, and the provincial government has pulled the plug on the museum project. Good leadership is not about making an executive decision on behalf of your constituents and publicly calling them offensive names when they disagree with you. Good leadership is communication. It is talking to your constituents, hearing what they have to say, and changing the course of the decision if it comes to light that what you have announced is not in the public interest. Consultation is not informing people of things. Consultation is listening to your constituents, hearing their opinions, and having an open dialogue with them. Please, Mayor and Council, if you truly listen to your residents, I'm sure you would hear that people are really struggling with many of the decisions you have made in the past year. Maybe it's time to take a step back and see if there's changes that could be made based on the opinions of your constituents. Truly listen to the input on Bylaw 711. Accept comments from residents on their opinion on solar sidewalks. Communicate and be transparent on things that affect all community members, such as the swimming pool, and make your decisions after you have taken your constituents into consideration. It's never too late to make this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll ask, I think it's probably Noni McCann.
Hi, thank you. Yes, it is Noni McCann. Following up on Sarah just a little bit. When the other day we saw the excavator inside the pool doing demolition in the pool, I was astonished at how my body reacted and my emotions reacted. I hadn't realized that that would be such a shocking experience for me to go through. Like I had no idea I was that attached to that pool. But it helped me to understand that the kinds of things that really are helpful to all of us, because we've all been through the trauma and we continue to react in as trauma victims, is anything that the council and staff can do to let us know, let the people know like what the plan is. It's really, really helpful to kind of go, oh, okay, so part of the plan is to demolish the pool, and because of whatever reasons. I'm sure someone at some point in time will give us a reason why the pool had to be demolished. But those are the kinds of things that just help, like what Sarah was saying, it helps all of the constituents of the community, and we're all trying to support the decisions that are being made, just to know what the plan is and how it's going to be executed. I went in and looked at the posted report of the recovery plan, and I'm sorry, but I just don't get it. So if there's any way someone can do a simplified plan that says, here's some community things that are going to happen, here's why we've reached this decision, and this is probably how this will play out. I just think that would be so helpful if it's possible to do it all. And I thank you for taking a few minutes to hear me say that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other. Oh, Jennifer Thoss, you're next.
Hi there. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I initially wanted to speak to the proposal for solar sidewalks, but I just am quite moved with Sarah, Denise, Ernie, and Noni's comments, and just want to start by reiterating everything that they said to the nth degree. So thank you for all the people of Lytton that continue to advocate. I too had a reaction when I saw the pool was being demolished without sort of consultation or an explanation. I think some of us had in our minds that the new building would be built around that. Regardless, back to my initial comments, the solar sidewalks, I have huge reservations, as Ernie alluded to. I hadn't done the research, but I know some projects like that, like the propane grid that was also mentioned at the recent CASC meeting, like the solar sidewalks, require a lot of capacity, which after, you know, the dust settles and we've rebuilt, we have to look forward to capacity, and running these things and maintaining these infrastructure projects doesn't seem to be in our best interest. So I'm very much as a taxpayer against the installation of these solar panels or any sort of infrastructure that taxpayers would be responsible for maintaining. Thank you. I mean, aside from sewer and water, of course, and hydro. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anyone else? And seeing no other hands raised, I'll pass it back to you, Mayor Polderman.
Thank you. So we're now on to adoption of the minutes for the council meeting that is held on July the 8th. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Councilor Ed?
On page, just a clarification, on page 6 of 148. Pardon me. At the bottom, I'm still doing it out of my business for 50.
Sorry, Mayor. Sorry, Councillor Hay. I just can't hear you. I don't know if you're just not very close to the microphone.
On page 6 of 148, at the bottom, when I read it, I was sort of taken aback, and it said as follows: BC Hydro noted the following highlights in their presentation. The first one, debris removal is almost complete. I would like to see the word BC Hydro debris almost complete. On page 7 of 148, the bottom line says delete the phrase lack or form. It should have said lack of OF or on page 10 of 148, in motion 22-372, at the bottom it said that staff be directed to submit, could be to submit. I'm sorry, bear with me here, but I lost my place. So, motion 22-378. The last word that I say, Lytton.ca website as soon as practical. I'm sure I stuck with the 30th of June being the date for that to appear. And maybe, Lori, you're going to have to check the recording because I know we did some bantering on that, but I was sure that I stuck by that date. Thank you, Your Worship.
So do any other councillors have any corrections?
No, but the sound is terrible. Something going on there.
Can you hear me?
It's
There's
rough.
some sort of distortion happening.
Still?
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now? I'm getting a little closer
That's
to the
better.
mic. Okay.
Yes.
On page 10, I believe it's a boil water advisory on line 2. Oh, the boil water advisory. And then in my report, that it says currently they are working on their infrastructure and have put in 200 miles of electrical service underground with the aim of having the fastest internet. So HAB should be having, and it should be infrastructure, to put, to have, they currently have put in 200 miles.
Would it be possible to ask for the changes that you're recommending just to be sent to the CAO for recording in the minutes? It's just really difficult to hear everything that's just been said.
Actually, that's already been done.
I've been marking them down, Ms. Weedman.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, Mayor, did you say the word bold should be boil at the top of page 10?
Yes.
Okay.
So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I'll motion.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So now we have a business arising from the minutes. The status of the June 30th anniversary event. So recovery director.
I can make a comment. So just to give an update from Mr. Matuzzi, he's provided the poster from the group that is working on the June 30th Lytton Strong date. So I'll just read out the activities. Activities are, there's a time capsule, wellness activities, lunch from 12 to 1, 3 to 4 p.m. There's the burning of a time capsule and closing, and obviously there's a hot dogs, there's salads and stuff for the lunch, and then there's going to be games and different things happening throughout the day. There's traditional, clinical and traditional support. There's art therapy, music related workshops, and Shahal game. So it sounds like it's going to be a good day for people to just get together and do some healing. And that's my report. I'm not sure if the Council for the Village of Lytton has determined whether they would be providing a donation, but it sounds like they've raised most of the money that they needed. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it would be probably a good thing. Would council wish to provide a donation towards that day from the amounts that you've been donated to from village, like small municipalities have provided, say $500 donations and stuff like that with no conditions to them.
I'll motion that we donate $500 to the event.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Sorry, can I just have it clarified where the fund would be coming from, CAO Group?
From the donations that have been received by the village from other municipalities. Ms. Weedman, can we do a sound check? I'm not sure why the sound isn't working very well. Can you hear us very well?
I can when you're leaning forward like that, but if people aren't putting their faces closer to the microphone, it becomes difficult and it patches in and out.
Okay. I'm just worried about touching the system because it falls apart on us. So go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so
would you like me to read out that motion, Your Worship?
Please.
That council provide a donation of $500 for the June 30th event from the donations that have been received by the village from other municipalities.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. Then we are on to building amendment bylaws 711.
Okay, again, Mr. Matuzzi sends his regrets, but he did provide an update, and I'm sure Councillor Michelle will speak later at the CAC part of the agenda. They did not have a quorum at the Citizen Advisory Committee meeting that they held on June 15th. However, they did have experts that provided commentary on the bylaw, and it's my understanding that for the most part, people got a good understanding of what was in it and why. So the plan will be to bring the bylaw back to the Citizen Advisory Committee on July the 6th, I believe is the Wednesday. And then bring a recommendation to council on the July 13th council meeting.
Thank you. Then the item 6.3 is our temporary village office option 1 project plan and budget. And I'll let our recovery coordinator, or our project coordinator, sorry, James High, speak to that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I don't have an update at this time on the budget or the schedule. We have met with the TNRD and with the insurers. We are working through an agreement on how the lease will work. We're also planning to do a kickoff meeting with all of those stakeholders at the table to try and map out the extent of the scope of work to do it. Following that, we will put together a high-level schedule and a budget for council and for the residents.
Thank you. And then item 6.4 is our update on the memorandum of understanding with the debris cleanup and remediation.
Mr. Hyde, do you want to provide your update?
Yeah, I can, sure. So we met on Tuesday with the insurance corporations again. There's approximately 50 people on that call who represent the insured residents of Lytton, including Insurance Bureau of Canada, Village, and the province of BC. So things are going really well. We, the Village's recovery team, have received over 25 right of entries from the insured residents of the Village of Lytton right now. At the beginning of the week, we'd received about 20. We have sent those first 20 through to the Heritage branch to have added to the Heritage investigation permit. Today, we received at least another 5 of those, and by the end of the week, we will add those through to the ministry and onto the Heritage investigation permit. So the process is working well. I'm sure our CFO can talk to it, but we did provide information through to the insurers about what the payment into the trust would look like and what mechanisms would work for that. And so I think generally very optimistic. We did quiz the insurers if they were having any additional questions or any issues that we needed to resolve to expedite the process. None were forthcoming, and we did remind them that expediting the process is extremely important at this point in time to try and move the schedule forward for the remainder of the remediation of the community.
Thank you. While I have you here, could you speak to the issue on how the decision was made, or how we came to the decision regarding the pool?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pool was deemed to be a total loss by the insurers, the municipal insurance agency. I don't know how they came to that determination. I suspect that they had their engineering and geotechnical experts assess it. So we waited for their direction on it, and the direction actually came quite a while ago. We had planned to mobilize on the pool earlier when we were doing the 5 municipal properties, but just due to being able to do the work in the ground and the heritage permit and the soil sampling, it was delayed. So the decision was with the municipal insurers. It is a total loss, meaning that we will be insured for a portion of the pool, and we can also apply for DFA, the disaster financial assistance, to have the pool reinstated in a like-for-like condition if directed to do so by council.
Thank you. So then we're on to item on to staff reports. So the Chief Administrative Officer is going to speak to the debris removal status report in May.
Actually, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Hyde to speak to.
Okay.
Yeah, great. So yeah, my team is trying to put together a status report. We've been building one out since March, since really the construction began. We call it construction, but the project where we've had our consultants and contractors and we're paying people to do services for the community. And so what we're attempting to do, and you'll have to bear with me a little, there's a lot of moving pieces, but we're trying to summarize the work that's ongoing, work that we planned to do and reporting against that work. We're trying to forecast some of the future work that we're looking at doing and put some schedules against that for people. And we're trying to do a high level status summary of what each of these groups are doing in the community. With that, we'll also put together, some select photos, but generally just a summary of the work that we're doing on site and some of the work that we plan to do. With this report, we put it out at usually the first week of the month for the prior month work that we have done. So this is a May report. We would have provided it in the first weeks of June, and we'll provide another report within the first weeks of July for the work in June.
Thank you. So now we are on to item 7.2, and that's the internal staff work. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Hay.
Sorry, Mr. Hyde, these are going to be sort of geared to you.
Okay, can you secure so that he can hear you?
The speaker is actually working quite a bit better in council chambers, I'll note. So
I'll just let him sit in front of the speaker.
Then I'll start yelling. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Good, thank you. As I said before, I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm trying to up my level of knowledge of what's going on down there because I get calls all the time wanting to know what's going on. On page 15 of 148, it says for the work period spanning May 1st, the first one says collected approximately 135 samples of burned debris from zone 1 to zone 7, with a few exceptions on properties that need to be confirmed to be within scope. So that means that they didn't meet the level of being clean, so you're going to go down farther?
You mean what defines being within scope?
What it said here, it says that, sorry, let me read it again because I'm trying to understand it. Collected approximately 135 samples of burned debris from zone 1 to zone 7, with a few exceptions on properties that need to be confirmed to be within scope. Does that mean retesting or more digging?
Neither. That means we haven't received a right of entry permit, so we haven't provided IBI with authorization to commence testing on those properties.
Thank you. And the next one I have was on the third one, zone 3 to 7 plus Hobo Hollow soil sampling. And my note just says, I still don't know the boundaries of the zones, but I'm sure I'm going to see that on the 30th of June on the map.
The zones generally follow the delineation by street. So street 1, our First Avenue South would be zone 1. 2nd Avenue South would be zone 2. 3rd Avenue South would be zone 3, and so on. Where zone 7 would take everything north of 7th Ave, the parish hall, the school, up to the, adjacent to the LFN boundary.
Super duper, thank you. So the next one down 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth one down, stage 1 PSI progress. What's stage 1? Is that just I'm just not sure what it is.
Yeah, so this is an environmental desktop review of historical contamination in the village, of known historical contamination. So they would look through records, photos, interview people from the archives or long-standing residents of the community to try and understand what what occurred on some of the properties in the village that could have contributed to contamination in the past. So think of a service station, a backyard, mechanic, some sort of industrial application. From there, we would get a snapshot of properties in the village that may have historical contaminations. And then further, a stage 2 would be to look further into those properties and potentially do some testing. The idea is that while we're testing and inspecting for the contaminations from the fire, we'd like to be able to just clean up any historical contamination at the same time. And so we need to understand what that is, what the extents of it are, and then we can make a decision to do that at the same time, so that our commitment to cleaning the village and bringing it back to a 100% clean slate is achieved.
Super, thank you very much for that explanation. Page 16 of 148. We list all our buildings next now. It's just a definition. I don't know what it is, or I need it, is NIR. What does that
NIR means Notice of Independent Remediation. Notice of Independent Remediation is it's a form, in fact, that we submit through to the Ministry of Environment. Once we've done our soil samples and we've identified contamination, we've characterized it, we then read the levels against the Ministry of Environment's legislation. If we exceed a certain level of contamination in certain key areas, we need to notify the ministry under legislation. So the Notice of Independent Remediation notifies the ministry that we've identified a known contaminant, and it also notifies them of our intent to clean it up and the methods in which we choose to clean it up. So this is the trigger that allows MatCon to go in and do the actual soil removal in these properties. From the time that we notify the ministry of our intent to remediate, we have 90 days to achieve that objective. At the end of 90 days, if we don't complete the remediation, then they can bring work orders and further penalties against us. So one of our goals is to do that in a zone by zone basis as well.
Great. If we skip the next paragraph and then down to the next one's always the one that I always bring up in our conversations, which I get weird feelings about. Continued moderate risk to budget due to unplanned monitoring. And I always wonder, have we put money aside to look out for that stuff, and what happens if things are too big?
We have, as part of our
B, I guess.
Yeah, as part of our budget planning, when we first talked to our archaeological consultant, we had them provide a budget for 2 monitors, 1 project manager and their archaeologist, to set a baseline similar to what we had done with the other consultants and contractors to get them moving. We knew that we would be requiring additional monitoring as we required more excavators and more crews came into town. So we provided them an initial contract with the expectation that as we provided more scope to them, we would have a change order in their contract. We have planned for that. We do have the budget for it. And so we will be seeking an increase at a future council meeting for their work.
Super, thank you. Next paragraph down, I read is, the number of heritage technicians monitoring per day range from 2 to 10, with an average of 4.1 heritage technicians per day. Monitoring is budgeted at a 2-person crew per monitor day. Okay, and it goes on to say this increase in daily monitors is allowing AEW to catch up on schedule. So the cost of the monitors is staying within the budget. It's just that somebody didn't work for 3 or 4 weeks. Now we're going to double them up to catch up.
They're still working within their initial budget. They have provided us a cash flow for at what point in time they would exceed their budget based on the level of effort they're providing. So at this point, they still have budget to continue providing services. And if you recall, the province has funded us to provide the heritage monitoring for all residences in the village, insured or uninsured. So again, we've created flexibility in their contract to ramp up as we get more properties and as we mobilize more equipment. We're also providing this service to CN Rail, for example, to some of the other institutional providers to allow them to mobilize and get their work done more efficiently. So the village is effectively coordinating all heritage monitoring with AEW in the village.
Thank you. Moving on to page 17. Again, it always bothered me. It said the effective thing is schedule and budget, schedule and budget, schedule and budget. I get petrified when we run out of money and the town still hasn't been done. That's why I just bring that up every time. So moving on to page 18. And I believe it's the one on, and I was gonna talk about it later, is that what we're looking at tonight to do the change order, that was what we already paid the 10% for way back when. Am I correct?
Correct. So that's included in the committed column on the budget section of the 7.45 million.
Okay, super. Thank you for your time, and you're bringing me up so good in speed, I'll probably be coming after your job.
Okay, so we are now on to 7.1.2, which is the 2022 internal staff work plan. So
We have a recommendation to accept it.
there's a recommendation that council receive the recovery plan, internal staff work plan, the ISW, last updated.
No, the one above it, sorry, Jen, that one.
Oh, sorry. We'll go back to 7.1. The recommendation that council received the report provided by Colliers regarding the debris status removal dated May the 2022, sorry. Can I get a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? I'll second that. I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So now we are on to 7.1-2, which is the internal staff work plan. And there's a recommendation that council received the recovery plan, internal staff work plan, last updated on June the 15th. 2022. So our acting CAO, you made that report, and so would someone like to make a motion to accept?
So moved.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You. So now we're on to 7.2.1, which is our chief financial officer. Would the CFO like to do a verbal report on the Sophie?
Thank you, Your Worship. The Sophie report is due at the end of the month, but the audited financial statements of the village are underway, but they're not going to be completed in time to complete the Sophie. So staff have reached out to the ministry to confirm that and advise that we're going to be late with the Sophie report. So it'll be forthcoming. Based on current estimates, it'll probably be the first meeting in August when the Sophie report comes before council for approval.
Thank you. So then we're on to 7.3, our corporate officer, the annual municipal report. Oh, sorry.
We missed 7.22.
Oh, I don't have a 7.22. So anyhow, you can go ahead with that.
I apologize, Your Worship. On the copy of the agenda I have, this is the amendment to our travel expense policy.
Oh, yeah, that was sent out to council, yeah, yesterday, last night.
So I
I'll
apologize.
try to bring the staff report.
I've got a hard copy here I can pass around.
Okay.
Councilors Urquhart, Michelle and Gray, do you have the updated staff report for the travel policy?
I do.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I've got it. You got it. I'm the only one that did.
You can keep that if you like. So your worship, pardon me, I apologize.
Councillor Urquhart, do you have the report?
Looks like he's frozen.
He's frozen.
He's
Okay.
frozen. So, Ms. Wiedemann, are you able to figure out how to get Councillor Urquhart back to being unfrozen? Or is that going to be his computer system?
I just sent him a direct message. We'll see, and asked if he's able to rejoin. So I'm not certain.
Hello, can you hear me here?
Yes, we can.
Okay, this is Ernie. This actually happened once before to him, and he needs to shut down and go back in again. So if you can telephone him, tell him to shut down and go back in again.
Just while we're waiting, Terry, what was the August date that you were speaking of for the Sophie report?
Councillor Gray, I don't have the calendar in front of me, but the first council meeting in August, I don't know what I'm not sure what that date translates to, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. That's just what I needed.
Oh, I don't have his phone number. I can't phone him. I don't have his phone number.
I'll see if I can send him a text.
Okay, well, I guess we're taking a brief moment.
So we'll just take a break for a few minutes while we get Councillor Urquhart back on the meeting.
Might have his number here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I believe we have his number.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've just texted him.
Okay, I got it here. Okay.
Got his phone number here. 250.
Leslie, can you make me co-host again?
1560.
Yeah.
Lori has his number.
Lori has his number from when she was doing the council swearing in.
Ross.
Do you have it?
Yes, I do.
His
Yeah,
wife
I
just
do.
mentioned they lost power, so.
Oh,
Well, you still have a quorum, I guess,
yes.
if you want to.
So we'll continue on then. So, council, we would need a motion that the council temporarily amend the approved expense policy relative to automobile mileage from 61 cents a kilometer to 71 cents a kilometer effective June 1st, 2022, until council further adjusts or rescinds the amendment.
Councillor A, so moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is he back?
No, I'm just there.
Okay. So CFO Haas, these amounts are sort of in line with what other organizations are paying?
Yes, your worship. I did some research to determine what other organizations were doing, and I discussed this with the CAO crew as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to 7.3, which is our corporate officer. Our annual municipal report is deferred to July, 2022.
I guess it'll be deferred to August because we need the audited financial statements to be included in that as well.
Okay, so that's to August.
No, the municipal affairs knows of it. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Okay, then we're on to item 7.4, our economic development officer.
Very good.
Councillor Urquhart, we are on item 7.4, the economic development officer.
It's actually not, he won't be an economic development officer. He's a consultant that will put together an economic recovery plan.
And so there's a recommendation. Would someone like to move the recommendation?
I'll move.
Councillor A, second the motion.
Is discussion?
Is this for a year?
No, this will actually be done in November.
Oh, okay.
So this is a full, it's basically, I don't like to use the word study, but it's basically a study. It's a report that'll be developed based on a ton of consultation, working with businesses, the other organizations like the Regional District, Western Diversification, Community Futures, the First Nation bands within the area, the village, the Chamber of Commerce certainly will be involved. And then the information will be, there's planning sessions, community engagement, data and gap analysis will be done, a validation of the second round of community engagement, and then the creation of the final economic recovery plan, which will then be brought to council for approval. And from there, the plan and the recommendations that come out of the plan will then be integrated and fed into the official community plan process and a regional economic development strategy. And the EDO, when you hire them late fall, will actually have this document to start implementing the recommendations. And we have funding of 500,000 that came from the Ministry of Forest Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development in January. So it's really key to get moving with using that funding and moving forward with economic development now that we have better timelines on how things are going to be completed with the debris removal and the rebuild to start. Then you have an economic development officer at that point that would be able to actually get going with your restarting your economy as well.
And that was my next question about the funding. So this is all covered in funding and it's good until I sort of remember there being a timeline on that funding?
No, there's no timeline on that funding, Councillor Gray. And we also have the 100,000 from the Northern Development Trust that will be what will be used to hire the economic development officer when the time comes.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we're on to 075 Public Works. There is a contract change order. And the recommendation that council approve a change order to the IBI Group Professional Services Canada Inc. for contract awarded February the 28th, 2022 to perform the role of environmental consultant and qualified professionals for the site remediation of uninsured properties in the village of Lytton in the amount of $2,169,910 plus applicable taxes, with the funds being allocated from the provincial government community recovery fund contribution agreement. And that the mayor and the chief administrative officer be authorized to execute the required documents. Would someone like to make that?
Councillor Hayes, so moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Our project coordinator, James High, might like to comment on this.
I sure can. Thank you, Mayor, Councillor. So this is an extension of the work that Councillor Hay had indicated earlier. In February, Mayor and Council approved us to enter into a contract with IBI for an initial $250,000. That was the budget that we had available at the time from the first grant, with the intention of continuing services if they were meeting, their expected outcome, which they are. So this is the extension of that original contract. It's intended to come out of the second grant that we received of the 18.4 million. The dollar that they proposed is under the budget that we had held for them in the original, in our original plan. So our recommendation is to continue working with IBI for the uninsured properties. I make that clear that this isn't for the insured properties. None of the contractors and consultants were anticipated to be doing that work in the original context. So that will all be increase of scope to their contract. And so we will be bringing that to you at a later date for the additional properties.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Hay?
Well, Mr. High, just getting back to where I originated, our first motion said that because we put the 10% for this to be followed at a later date. So we've already signed on to this, I believe, back then.
Yeah, we referred to it as a retainer at that point in time to what we had assumed was around a $2.6 million budget. This combined with the first contract falls underneath of that value. So it's within our budget.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So we are now on, there is no 7.6, so we're on to item 8, which are bylaws, policies, and resolutions. And 8.1 is building bylaws 710 for final adoption. There is a recommendation that building bylaws 710 2022 be adopted. Building bylaw number 710 2022 as amended.
I'll motion.
Okay.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You. Item 8.2 is filming policy number 2022-09, and the recommendation that council adopt the Village of Lytton filming policy number 2022-09. There was a report to council filming in Lytton, and there was a policy draft that was given to us. Would someone like to move the
I'll motion we adopt the policy.
I will second the policy.
So is this the first reading?
Yeah.
No, policies only get adoption. It's
Okay,
not a bylaw, it's a policy, yeah.
So is there any questions regarding this policy?
perhaps it would be good if it went to the advisory committee for their comments before we finalize it.
I don't know that that's their mandate.
I believe they did make recommendations on the filming policy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And they said,
Yeah, it was brought forward to them, and the recommendations were reflected in the policy that was developed.
Sounds great.
so I have one question. If a outfit like Google Street View comes and takes pictures of everyone's houses, will they need to be permitted?
According to the policy, if they are a profit, a for-profit company, they would be, yeah. Production photography would be under the commercial filming on page 112.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So now we are on to 8.3, the fees and charges amendment bylaw 721 2021, that the fees and charges amendment bylaw 721 2022 be introduced and given first, second, and third readings.
So this amendment is only to insert the $500 for the filming fees.
I'll motion. I'll second.
Second motion.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You. So we don't have any correspondence for action, so we are on to correspondence for information. So we have, oh, there is one. So item 925 has a recommendation with it. This is the UBCM annual conference, the Premier and Ministers meeting request, and a recommendation that correspondence items number 9-21 to 9-25 on June the 22nd, 22 agenda be received for information.
Councillor Hayes, so moved.
I'll second.
Your worship, I have a question of council. Are you at all thinking that there's anything that you would like to go to UBCM to speak to any minister or the premier about? This is your opportunity to put in for a meeting if you wanted to.
The date of the meeting?
When is UBCM? It's in September. The deadline to respond is August 23rd. Yeah. It's just, I would like you to start thinking, oh, sorry, the deadline to make the meeting with the premier would be June 24th. And then any of the cabinet ministers. And then for provincial staff, because sometimes people will meet with specifically, you know, the infrastructure. Yeah, August 23rd is the deadline.
So when would you, sorry, I'm not talking about, when would you need that so you could pass it on?
If you want to meet with the premier or any of the ministers, I would need it by June 24th, because that's the deadline to submit.
Yeah.
That's like Friday.
Yes.
So you should book an appointment with him. The other ones we have time with.
Yeah, if you want to meet with the provincial staff, you've got time.
With the ministers.
The ministers, you need to let us know by June 24th.
My thoughts on this, my fellow councillors, I don't mean to be taking my floor away, but we should thank the people personally to face would have helped us. The municipal affairs, the premier, the
Yes.
gentleman was up here. Anybody that has personally come up here and done something, we should walk in, look them in the eye and say, thank you.
Okay,
So we can book those meetings.
yeah, if you
Okay.
wanted direct staff to do that,
I will direct staff to do that.
make a
You want a
motion.
motion?
I will make a motion, yes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you.
So all in favor of receiving items 921 to 925 to be received for information?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
And to direct staff to set up meetings.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
So we are now on to reports from mayor and councillor. I had a conversation with ADM Peterson. And I also met with Lytton First Nations regarding our MOU to try and get that back on track. There have been, I've done a whole number of interviews regarding the 1-year anniversary. And I'm quite sure that you'll be seeing them in the near future. And that's all I have to report. Councillor Urquhart.
I attended meetings. The announcement by the federal minister was an interesting one about the money he's bringing us. I had a nice conversation with him. He's a very nice man. Enjoyed the conversation. Had many contacts with residents regarding specific issues and passed their worries along to various, mostly to James Height and Mr. Dickinson and the like. So just basically trying to keep in contact with the people and keep things moving. So that's all I've been doing.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a quick request that we get council together for a discussion at some point regarding the funding that we're going to be getting and how we can apply it. I realize that we won't have the parameters of the funding for probably 3 weeks, but we can certainly get together and put forward some ideas around how we can best apply the funding and what kind of parameters we might be looking at, especially where we're talking about the net zero for the homeowners, how we can work that best for the homeowners in an equitable fashion, and types of what we can do with the municipal funding for infrastructure and so on. I was hoping that we might be able to do something next week when I have a little bit more time and could get together at least over Zoom for a couple of hours to discuss this with everyone. So if anybody is available to do that, it would be great. And that's really all I've got.
Thank you.
That becomes a meeting.
It can be a CAO briefing. Yeah.
Okay. So instead of having a meeting, we'll have a CAO briefing.
Sounds good.
I guess the intent of said meeting is to look at items of infrastructure that the village needs. And I guess the general public should also put forward some of the items that they might see in the way of public infrastructure as being beneficial. And we'll consider all ideas. So, Councillor Michelle.
Thank you. So I attended the meeting with the federal minister regarding this announcement for the new funding. That was really good to be a part of. And that was about it. I did also have a few messages last night concerning the pool. So thank you, Mayor Holderman and James, for addressing that, even though it wasn't on the agenda. And that was about it for that. Can I move on to my CASC report now?
Actually, Councillor Hay is next, and
Oh,
then
he
you're
hasn't
back
gone
on.
yet. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also attended the presentation by the federal minister. I got a very disturbing call early in June from a renter who contacted me that they were being cut off from all support by the Red Cross by August. I went to the Resilience Center on the 13th of June with that individual to see what was going on. As I, as a counselor, had heard nothing about that. To the best of my knowledge, I thought everybody was being looked after. And I also made a statement, well, just after the fire, that I personally will not see a resident of Lytton on the street. The Red Cross stated that EMBC had told them to full pay renters who were affected by the fire for the month of June. Half pay in July, quarter pay in August, and then they were on their own. I find this a bit troubling, as the village had many renters who worked many different jobs and areas within Lytton. And they're supposed to leave now. How does the village replace them once we rebuild? Maybe the Citizens Advisory Select Committee can contact each of the renters and provide a report to council the first meeting in July. The reason I say that is when I was the chair, we had one of the members who had a list of all the renters, so it should not be hard to contact. And I also believe that it is best to address this sooner than later, as once the support ceases, it will be extremely difficult to get it started again. And we have quite a few people, and a fair number of them giving out the donation cards. So we've got to start looking after these people. Lastly, on my report, Public Works, and I just put in brackets Tom, he's been weed whacking up in our cemetery and also doing Ponderosa Hydro Way and Loring Way, which is good to see getting done. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. So we're on to item 11, which is reports from committees of council and commissions. So the Citizen Advisory Select Committee, I will turn the floor over to Melissa Michelle.
Thank you. One thing that, so we have had Karen Kimball join the committee. We still have 2 openings, and I also received a resignation from Jade Baxter. So we're back to 3 positions being open on the committee. I'm not sure. I believe it's the council that selects people. I haven't received any interest, so I'm not sure if we want to put that out there. Our last meeting, we didn't have a quorum, so we did I guess it was like an information session. We had Sophie from the ICLR and Bruce from BA Blackwell and a couple other people that were there. The information provided was really good. I believe it's recorded and available on the YouTube. If people haven't seen it, I would suggest watching it. And that was about it.
Thank you. So there are recommendations, and the first recommendation is that the Citizens Advisory Select Committee recommends to council that it expedite the decision on how the remaining gift cards are distributed. Maybe Councillor Hay can speak to that, to the gift cards.
Certainly can, Your Worship. In accordance with motion 22-377, the gift cards have been distributed. I have done the books to the satisfaction of myself and with the CFO.
And the remaining, were there any remaining gift cards?
The motion says where the remaining ones are supposed to go.
Okay, so we don't need to make that recommendation. Thank you. And then the second recommendation is that council received the minutes from the Citizens Advisory Select Committee for June 1st, 2022. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Councillor Hay.
Question, if I may, and Madam CAO, I think has addressed this, but on the one I have on my agenda, it's got council present, it's got Chair Councilor Melissa Michelle, Councilor Ian Hay, and Mary Jan Holman. I was not at that meeting. I just happened to be sitting in this room as a participant, same as I did the other day, so I should not be on those minutes. And I won't speak for the mayor, but I like my name taken off, please.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. So then we're on to 12, new business, the solar sidewalk memorandum of understanding. So this, we had signed an MOU with them that back earlier on this year regarding sidewalks. And they have come back with a new memorandum of understanding. This does not, how do you say that? It does not commit us to anything. But what it does is it will allow them to amend their proposal going forward. And that is to include the lithium ion batteries as backup power to the sidewalks. So, discussion?
Yeah, so these, what you're doing is creating a way to light the street lights, I think you said. So is that mostly what it's all about, or is it got further use?
This MOU is basically that we're going to cooperate with the outfit putting the proposal forward. And you know, so i.e. we will be sharing information like our electrical loads so that they can put a proposal into us. It is my understanding that this does not commit us to anything. So, you know, what the intent is so that they will amend their proposal going forward to include the lithium ion batteries. And once that proposal comes in, we either give it the thumbs up or we give it the thumbs down.
Yeah, but the benefits they are going to leave for Lytton, as far as I can read, had to do with street lighting and possible charging stations for cars, or and this isn't some plan to feed into every house or anything like this, from what I can tell, is it?
Not that the proposal so far does not include going to people's houses.
I see. And they're doing this more or less as an experiment to start off with, to find out what how long this can take, how well these tiles and pavers can last, or is this a proven product already?
Well, I mean, this is a relatively new product, and once again, this is for them to put a proposal forward to us. And so you know, the details of what's gonna come out of that proposal, we have to wait for. right?
Okay. Certainly.
Councillor Gray?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that the MOU also indicates that they have an interest in putting a plant in Lytton that will create jobs.
That was part of their original MOU as well, yes.
Okay. And would it be possible for a representative from Solar Earth to join us perhaps for 5 or 10 minutes and answer some of the concerns that the citizens have brought forward recently?
They certainly, we can certainly do that.
Super, thank you.
What I want to stress again here is that this is just an agreement to work with them to put a proposal forward. It is not that we're buying their product today, right? That we have to look at the proposal for, and basically what they're suggesting is that this proposal include you know, the lithium ion batteries to store the energy. And from what I understand, that type of battery technology is used in ports to power ships. So.
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
What's the motion?
Second.
What's the motion, Your Worship?
To accept the MOU.
The amended MOU.
And sign, accept and sign the amended MOU from for the
Yes.
Solar. Okay. Okay, thank you.
So is there any further discussion? Councillor Hay?
A couple things like that. And I'm not sure, I'm very technically challenged, okay, so please understand that what I'm about to say. I was reading a very good article on a newscast the other day. I was talking about 7 deaths in British Columbia due to fire caused by that type of battery. And it's just starting to come into use. Once everybody drives electric cars and all that stuff, we're gonna start having more problems. The other one that I would like, because I am technically challenged, is contracts and MOUs, I like going to our lawyer that tells we're not gonna be handcuffed, because I don't wanna say, oops, at a later date. So I'll ask Madam CAO this, do you think that if we get someone in to talk to us, do you think we get this to our lawyers and back to us?
Oh, yeah,
In a couple
So
of
if
weeks?
do you want to ask for a friendly amendment to the resolution?
Well, I'm just saying what I want, because I'll be voting against it.
Well, you could ask for a friendly amendment that can, you know, contingent on the legal counsel reviewing the MOU that it signed.
I'll make that amendment.
I'll second.
And that's just the amendment is that the revised MOU go back to the lawyers just to make sure that we're not committing to anything besides cooperation.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mayor Pullerman.
Okay. So is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So then we are on to the calendar of events. And so the office will be closed on July the 1st, which is, I believe, Canada Day. The Citizens Advisory Select Committee is on July the 6th. Our next regular council meeting will be July the 13th. And the second advisory committee will be July the 20th. And our next regular council meeting will be held on the 27th of July. So
Mr.
then, yes.
Sorry, I don't know if you're aware, there's a posting from Dave Peterson in the chat room regarding Councillor Hayes' query about the Red Cross. I don't know if you can see it, Leslie, to read it.
I can try it, yeah.
I could read it, Leslie, if you want.
Thank you, sure.
He has written, I am deeply troubled to hear Councillor Hayes' report of a message that he received from the Red Cross. I can empathetically state that the EMBC has not advised the Red Cross as was reported, and there is no direction from EMBC to reduce the housing supports. I would welcome the opportunity to resolve this as soon as possible and encourage the council to raise issues such as this to us through the village staff as soon as possible. EMBC meets with village staff many times every week and can address any issue immediately as it comes up.
Thank you. I'm sure he'll be hearing from us tomorrow. So then we're on to item 14, closed meetings. The item to be released is the motion 20-88C. It was moved by Councillor Michelle and seconded by Councillor Gray. The recommendation that the contract and the appointments for Laurie Wiedemann as interim acting administrative officer and corporate officer be extended to June 3rd. Then we also, there was motion 2089. It was moved by Councillor Gray and Councillor Urquhart that the contract for James High of the Colliers Project leaders be extended to the 31st of October. There was motion 22-90C. It was moved by Councillor Gray and Councillor Urquhart that the contract for Owen Collins be extended until December 31st. And item 2292C, it was moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Urquhart, that council instruct staff to enter into an agreement with the TNRD and MIA to acquire a temporary village hall that utilizes the insurance coverages, and that the village's only cost will be to recommence its monthly rent of approximately $1,125. So that was to be released from a closed meeting. And now we will be ending the public part of the meeting and going into a closed meeting under sections 90-1A and C. So I want to thank everyone for showing up. My counselors need to stick around.
We need a motion to go into in camera.
And can I get a motion to go in camera?
Councillor Hayes, so moved.
Second.
I'll second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Leslie?
you, Your Worship. I will just ask everyone to leave the meeting. It'll take me just a minute to ask everyone to leave.
I didn't get that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. I'll go after the Red Cross. I got flattened in here under oath. I have nothing to vote for until somebody else can.
Hey, Leslie,
Yes.
just a quick notation on that last item released from in camera.
Yep.
22-92C, insurance coverages, there shouldn't be an apostrophe. Either that or it's just insurance coverage without.
Yeah. Yeah.
You missed that. You missed it.
Okay, I believe it's just council and the folks in the room that are now here, and we will, Leslie will stop the recording.
Okay.
Yes, please, just